Han Li emerges from seclusion. He saved Patriarch Linghu of Yellow Maple Valley and Nan after Han Li and Ziling took over the Zhulan Kingdom in the Valley of the Devil's Fall. They immediately refined the creation pills and entered seclusion to raise their cultivation. And today is the day they emerge. How many days have I been in seclusion? Nothing happened during this time? Right. Han Li walked slowly towards the cave entrance, but he asked casually as he walked, Master, you have been in seclusion for 2 days and 2 nights. During this time, Miss Ziling seemed to emerge from seclusion 1 step ahead of you. Master, she came to check on you once, but when she saw the restrictions at the cave entrance had not been removed, she went back. Yin Yue reported in detail. Ziling's cultivation is still shallow. The effect of the creation pill on her was more direct, so it's not strange that she emerged a step earlier. On the other hand, your unwillingness to take the creation pill, that's what truly surprises me, Han Li said faintly. Master should know that I am not a human cultivator, but a Silver Moon Wolf demon. On top of that, I am now cultivating using the body of a demon fox. This makes things even more complicated. My constitution is vastly different from that of human cultivators, except for pills that purely advance one's cultivation. Other spirit pills meant for cultivators, I dare not consume them recklessly, otherwise, who knows what kind of chaos would ensue. Zibei would rather spend some more time than risk a reckless leap in this display, he said via voice transmission, somewhat helplessly. Pan and I frowned slightly. After a moment of thought, she nodded slightly and said nothing more. As for the remaining Linghu fruits from refining the pills, he naturally did not waste them. Before taking the creation pill, he had already gone ahead and swallowed them all. Now that the medicinal power was absorbed, it actually increased his cultivation base by a small amount, truly worthy of its name as a rare spiritual herb of heaven and earth. When Han Li arrived at the cave entrance, those puppet beasts were still waiting obediently behind the gate, completely motionless. He took a few steps forward, took a storage pouch from his waist and tossed it into the air. Instantly, a white radiance shot out from the mouth of the pouch. Wherever it passed, the puppet beasts were obediently sucked into it. Only then did Han Li use a technique to open the stone gate of the cave dwelling, and walked out steadily. The very moment he opened the stone gate, a streak of brilliant light shot up into the sky from a nearby mountain peak. Speeding in his direction, Han Li glanced at the streak of light. He calmly reached out a hand and made a beckoning gesture to his surroundings. Instantly, from the ground nearby, a clear light was continuously streaming out, transforming into formation flags and discs one by one. They fell neatly into his palm. Brother Han, you finally come out of seclusion. I thought you would remain in seclusion for another half a day. Fellow Taoist. At that moment, a streak of light flew to a stop above Han Li, revealing Ziling's figure. Floating in the air, she gave Han Li a captivating smile. Instantly, her face was radiant. Her beauty blossomed like a flower. She was truly charming and gorgeous. A kindred spirit. It seems the pill worked wonderfully for you, Miss Ziling. In the future, advancing to the mid-core formation stage will only be a matter of a few years of meditation. I must congratulate you in advance. Fellow Taoist, Han Li spoke words of congratulations. You're too kind, Brother Han. I merely took the creation pill. It just saved me several decades of arduous cultivation, that's all. As for you, Brother Han, after taking the creation pill, you have a great chance of advancing to the mid-Nascent Soul stage. Now that is truly a cause for celebration. Ziling's bright eyes twinkled. She said with a smile, Fellow Taoist Ziling, you don't really think that a core formation cultivator and a Nascent Soul cultivator get the same results after taking the creation pill, do you? Although that creation pill is said to be for anyone below the deity transformation stage, and that all such cultivators can take it. But in reality, the lower one's cultivation level is, the greater the effect. If a core formation cultivator were to take this pill, they would undoubtedly advance to the next stage. But for a Nascent Soul cultivator, it's hard to say. Whether they could advance because of it is another matter entirely. Han Li said calmly, in any case, this creation pill will surely be of great help in advancing your cultivation stage. Fellow Taoist, Brother Han, you don't need to be so modest. Given that you, fellow Taoist, took just over 200 years to reach the Nascent Soul stage, advancing to the mid-Nascent Soul stage in the future should be just around the corner. Hearing Ziling mention his aptitude, Han Li couldn't help but smile wryly to himself. Although he didn't argue the point, he still shook his head lightly. Ziling smiled, just as she was about to say something more. A world-shaking boom suddenly erupted from the distance, rumbling towards them. Then, the entire world, as if provoked, trembled violently. Han Li was fine, but Ziling, who was floating in midair, suddenly faltered. She nearly fell from the sky. What happened? What's going on? Zilin hurriedly steadied her flight, but the color drained from her face in terror. Han Li was equally shocked in his heart. He didn't bother to reply to anything. He raised his hand and looked toward the source of the enormous sound. This position. It seems to be the exact direction marked on the map. A thought stirred in his mind. Han Li felt a pleasant surprise. Just at this moment, a white line lit up on the distant horizon. Then came a piercing whistle. The sound came rolling in like thunder. The white line thickened from thin to thick in the blink of an eye. It was boundless. A hazy white shockwave suddenly appeared not far away. As far as the eye could see, the shockwave was like a great white wave spanning thousands of miles. All the hills and stone mountains in its path were instantly flattened. Countless tons of yellow earth and giant boulders were swept up within it. It came rolling towards Han Li. Its speed was incredible. In an instant, it was only a few hundred yards away from them. Not good, seeing such a terrifying sight. Han Li's expression changed. Without thinking, he flicked his sleeve. A small blue shield flew out from his cuff. After circling once, it expanded rapidly. It transformed into a shield, positioning itself in front of him. A mere slip of paper acted as a giant shield. A layer of hazy blue light appeared. It enveloped Han Li within it. Han Li still seemed uneasy. Then, she opened her mouth again. A fist-sized ball of blue ice flame shot out directly from her mouth. It flew for over 100 feet before exploding in midair. Ahead, a blinding blue light flared up. Large clouds of cold air appeared, swirling together layer upon layer. In the blink of an eye, it rapidly froze into thick blue ice. A blue ice mountain over 500 feet tall stood before Han Li. Zilin was naturally shocked and turned pale as well. They frantically took out a silk handkerchief. It transformed into a colorful mist, protecting their entire body. Upon seeing that Han Li had actually conjured an entire ice mountain, a look of pleasant surprise appeared on their face as they hurriedly descended, landing beside Han Li. Just at that moment, the distant shockwave finally crashed towards the two of them with a deafening roar. The entire sky suddenly went dark. Then, the sound of the world tearing apart erupted all around them. The ice mountain before them began to tremble violently. Dozens of millstone-sized boulders simultaneously smashed into the other side of the ice mountain, making a series of piercing crashes. The sound was enough to make one's blood churn, causing a great sense of distress. When Ziling saw that the massive iceberg was also being shaken violently, her face turned pale. She couldn't help but glance at Han Li beside her. At that moment, Han Li stood within the light barrier formed by the giant shield. Her expression was as calm as ever. There wasn't the slightest hint of panic. When Ziling saw this, she too felt greatly reassured. She knew in her heart that Han Li most likely had other protective measures. That was why she was so composed. Somewhat to Ziling's surprise, however, in the time that followed, Han Li made no move to use any other magic treasures or divine abilities. As for the blue iceberg, although it was shaking incessantly under the impact of the rocky shockwave, it was exceptionally resilient. In the end, not a single crack appeared on it. Pleasantly surprised, Ziling only then realized that this blue ice was not formed from ordinary frost cha. It seemed considerably tougher than diamond. For the time it took to drink 1 cup of tea, the astonishing shockwave finally swept furiously past, receding far into the distance behind the two of them. The deafening rumble also faded as the white line in the distance vanished, and everything became silent once more. What in the world is this? How can something like this exist in the fallen Devil Valley? Ziling let out a soft breath. She transformed the vibrant rosy clouds back into a silk handkerchief and put it away in her hand. Then she asked Han Li with confusion, "I'm not sure, but the spiritual energy in the distance is not right. It's extremely chaotic, and this energy wave is truly astonishing. It's not something an ordinary person could create. Could it be that a spatial rift somewhere has run into a problem? But this energy wave is so ferocious. I doubt that unseen restriction can block it. If the Silver Eagle cultivators encounter it, they should be fine. Most of them have the ability to protect themselves. But if it rushes into the outer valley, those low-level cultivators will be in for some terrible luck." Han Li murmured as his eyes flickered. After hearing Han Li's words, Ziling's delicate brows furrowed tightly. She also used her divine sense to probe ahead. Although she sensed a slight anomaly in the spiritual energy, it was simply too far away for her divine sense. She couldn't sense anything more specific. Something is indeed not right. "Brother Han, are you planning to go take a look?" Ziling blinked her beautiful eyes and asked softly, "Go over there? Why would I go over there? Regardless of whether this energy wave is man-made, or if it just happened to erupt on its own, that place is no good anyway. Although I am a bit curious, I don't want to go looking for trouble." Let's go back the way we came. Besides, we've achieved most of our goals for this trip. Now, after this sudden turn of events, the Ghost Spirit sect probably won't have time to look for us. It's the perfect time to get away. Han Li hesitated for a moment. Then, having made up his mind, he spoke slowly. Then he extended one finger and tapped it lightly in the air before him. Instantly, the light barrier around him rapidly dissipated and vanished. The shield also shrank quickly, becoming a few inches in size. He tucked it into his sleeve. As for the iceberg in front of him, Han Li held out a palm and pressed it gently against the ice wall. A blue light immediately flared up. The iceberg instantly shrank and melted away. A moment later, a small ball of blue flame, identical to the one from before, merged into the palm of his hand. Seeing this, a look of surprise flashed in Ziling's bright eyes. Han Li raised his palm and looked at it. A hint of satisfaction appeared on his face. This technique of reabsorbing the ice flame into his body was something he figured out using the insight he gained in the illusionary realm, a method of using the ice flame that he had just comprehended. Although it was only his first time doing it, he was surprisingly proficient. As if it were second nature, it was as if he had already practiced it many times. It truly surprised even Han Li himself. This showed that what he had experienced in the illusionary realm was not some kind of phantom or illusion, but a true comprehension of heaven and earth on a higher level. In that case, having already experienced the state in advance, his chances of advancing to the mid-Nascent Soul stage were now very high. Just as a slight smile appeared on his face, and he turned to say something more to Ziling, but right at that moment, suddenly, a flash of light appeared on the horizon behind the two of them. Then, two streaks of light shot over, one after the other, one shimmering and one white. They were wavering and trembling, flying over in this direction as if fleeing for their lives. Han Li's divine sense swept over them with surprising ease. How could he not recognize these two? Ziling also probed them with her divine sense. She could only tell that the owners of the two streaks of light were Nascent Soul stage cultivators. She couldn't glean anything else. She couldn't help but ask, "Of course I recognize them, and I have a bit of a history with them." Han Li's brow furrowed slightly. Then he stared into the distance with a strange expression, and said calmly, "The two people in the escaping light in the distance. One had a sallow complexion, and wore a yellow robe. It was actually Patriarch Linghu of Yellow Maple Valley, and next to him was a woman with a slightly pale face. A cold-faced woman in a white dress. She was actually the great elder of the Masked Moon sect, Nan Gongwan's senior martial sister. These two had also come to the Demonfall Valley. Han Li couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He hadn't seen these to enter the valley. It seems they didn't sneak in with everyone else. They must have deliberately waited until the end to sneak into the valley. Both of them now had looks of terror on their faces, desperately pushing their escaping light to flee, even though there was clearly no one behind them. It was as if some terrifying thing was tailing them, right on their heels. They didn't dare to stop for even a moment. Han Li found it very strange, but the divine abilities of these two were by no means weak. Patriarch Ling, who was a mid-stage Nascent Soul cultivator, and Nan Gongwan's senior sister also had incredibly sharp cultivation techniques and magic treasures. For two such people to join forces, and still be fleeing in such a sorry state, it was truly unbelievable. Could it be that the Mulan spell warriors were chasing them from behind? That divine sage Zhang? As this thought occurred to him, a chill ran through Han Li's heart. His relationship with the Mulan mages was absolutely terrible. He had ruined the Mulan people's plans several times, and many high-ranking Mulan mages had died by his hand. If he were to run into that divine master, they would likely attack him without mercy. At this thought, Han Li dared not hesitate. His figure immediately flickered. While the two in the distance had not yet noticed this place, he appeared beside Zilin in a flash. Before the surprised woman could even speak, Han Li formed a hand seal. A spiritual light flashed from his body. An azure glow silently appeared above their heads and drifted down upon them. Han Li and Zilin's figures faded within the azure light, vanishing without a trace in an instant. They were completely concealed. Just then, the two streaks of light in the distance finally drew near the mountain peak where Han Li had been. Ancestor Linghu's ashen and ghastly face. Han Li could faintly make it out. Suddenly Han Li's gaze shifted, fixing on a spot behind the two of them, a location a few hundred yards away. His golden eyes narrowed. "Where do you think you are going? What, abandoning your companion already? TSK, the cultivation of you two is quite impressive. Your primordial spirits are exceptionally robust, perfect for being a great supplement for this venerable one. How could I possibly let you to escape? There will be no more accidents this time. It would be best for you two to surrender obediently." This maniacal laughter was completely unrestrained. showing no intention of holding back at all. After those few short words were spoken, the nearby sky began to hum and vibrate. The cultivators within a radius of over 10 miles could all hear it with perfect clarity. Then, in the direction Han Li was gazing, a dark light suddenly flashed at a point behind the two streaks of escaping light. A wisp of black radiance bizarrely appeared. Once this black radiance appeared, it began to flicker erratically, fading in and out of existence. But with each flash, it bizarrely closed the distance with the escaping lights ahead. After just a moment, the black radiance was closing in on old Ancestor Linghu and his companion ahead. It was only 500 to 600 feet away. At that moment, a figure faintly emerged from within the black light. Although it was extremely blurry, Han Li quickly focused his spiritual sense to see, but it was unknown what kind of cultivation technique or secret art this black light was. Even with his level of cultivation, he was unable to penetrate it with his spiritual sense. He could only vaguely see a general outline from the outside. But Han Li was quite familiar with this person's figure. With a turn of his thoughts, he recognized the person. Han Li was greatly shocked. Marquis Nan Long. How could he be here? And how did he end up looking like this? Han Li was now incomparably shocked. It was precisely the Marquis Nan Long who had been plotted against. Although Han Li didn't know, the other party's body had been possessed by a demonic soul. He was no longer the original Marquis Nan Long, but the demonic energy emanating from him soared to the heavens. He dared to hunt them down all by himself. Old Man Linghu and the great elder of the Joyful Union sect. He naturally knew that something was amiss, so he didn't act rashly. At this moment, Marquis Nan Long, riding a black streak of light, was only about 30 jong away from the two in front. A sinister, strange laugh escaped his lips. With a whoosh, the black streak of light actually burst apart. A cloud of ink-black demonic energy appeared out of thin air, instantly enveloping him within it. Then, the dark light flashed wildly. Marquis Nan Long actually vanished inside the black energy in an instant. Old Man Linghu and the woman in white were constantly watching Marquis Nan Long's every move. Upon seeing his bizarre disappearance, the expressions of the two of them changed drastically. They both stopped their escape lights in unison. Each held a treasure to guard their side. A jet-black ancient mirror. A hazy yellow jade ruyi scepter flew out at the same time. Each transformed into a ball of spiritual light, protecting the two of them within. And not far in front of the two of them, a flash of black light appeared. Pitch-black demonic energy gushed out without any warning. Instantly, it spread over an area dozens of yards wide. The figure of Nan Long then appeared within the black energy. You clearly know you are no match for me, yet you still insist on resisting. How utterly foolish, Nan Long said with a sneer from within the black energy. He then seemed to casually raise his hand and wave. A loud bang was heard. It was as if an invisible giant hand had struck, hitting the light shield the white-robed woman had deployed. Immediately, both she and her defense were sent flying back dozens of feet by the blow. Only then did she shakily and barely manage to steady herself. Patriarch Linghu's already ashen face became even uglier at this moment. You, what in the world are you? Not only did you possess the body of fellow Taoist Nan Long, you even dare to devour the primordial spirits and nascent souls of our cultivators. Do you really think that by entering this valley, you can be a match for all the cultivators here? Among the cultivators who entered the fallen Devil Valley this time, there are dozens at the Nascent Soul stage and above alone. No matter how powerful you are, you can't escape death. Elder Ling, who suddenly shouted sharply, Hey. Excellent. I actually thought that there were only you few human cultivators in this valley. To think there are so many nascent souls for this venerable one to devour. In that case, I'm in no hurry to retrieve my body. As long as I devour all of these nascent souls, I expect this venerable one's soul power will be enough to recover 7 or 8 tenths of my strength. Marquis Nan Long showed no fear. Instead, he let out a sinister, cold laugh. Then, with a loud boom, the black mist instantly exploded into pieces. Then, a dark human figure shot out from the black mist with a trail of afterimages. It charged straight for Patriarch Linghu. Patriarch Linghu's expression changed, and without a moment's thought, the protective shield from the jade ruyi instantly thickened by 30%. At the same time, he opened his mouth and spat out a small, square seal. Amidst a radiant glow, it turned into a ball of green light and shot forward to meet the attack. With a deafening boom, that Marquis Nan Long sneered. He struck the jade seal with his fist without any hesitation. The black and green lights intertwined, but the black mist contracted, and with a single palm strike, it shattered the radiant light. The seal was sent flying backward with a whoosh. It smashed violently back towards Patriarch Linghu. Old Ancestor Linghu was startled. He hastily formed hand seals. He unleashed a series of Shu Mountain incantations. Only then did he manage to stop the Imperial Seal before his protective shield. It barely came to a halt, but in that moment of delay, a pitch-black fist bizarrely appeared before the protective shield and smashed down hard, causing the shield to shatter violently. Old Ancestor Linghu only felt a tremendous force coming from in front of him. He was immediately sent flying diagonally, along with his shield. But old Ancestor Linghu was indeed an old monster who had lived for nearly 1,000 years. His combat experience was exceptionally rich. Before being knocked away, he actually managed to flick his embroidered robe first. A fiery red flying dagger shot out ahead, aiming straight for the Nan Long monkey, who had just revealed its form. The Nan Long monkey's face was covered in dark energy. It let out a sinister grin, seeing the flying dagger turn into a streak of light above its head. It had no intention of dodging at all. Instead, it took a sharp breath and opened its mouth towards the flying dagger above. A wisp of bewitching black and red flame shot out. The moment the flying dagger touched the black and red flame, it was instantly entangled and enveloped by the demonic flame. The red spiritual light on the dagger flickered mournfully. In just a few moments, it was completely devoured. Instantly, the dagger lost all of its spirituality. It turned into a piece of scrap iron and fell down. When old Ancestor Linghu saw this scene, he was utterly horrified. This flying dagger seemed ordinary, but it was actually from the Tianan cultivation world, a renowned evil-slaying treasure blade. It was a treasure he had obtained with great difficulty back in the day. It had a special, miraculous effect against evil demons and spirits. The Marquis Nan Long before him was clearly possessed by some powerful evil spirit. That was why he had unleashed this blade so suddenly, although he never expected this treasure to easily slay his opponent. For it to be so carelessly shattered by the opponent with a casual wave of his hand truly left him aghast. Just as old Ancestor Linghu stood there, pale with shock, that demonized Marquis Nan Long, before his figure could even stabilize itself, seemed to stretch its body. With a whoosh, its figure moved just like a python, instantly becoming long and slender. Its upper body merely shot forward slightly, and in an extremely bizarre fashion, it appeared right in front of old Ancestor Linghu, and threw another punch. Old Ancestor Linghu was then sent flying. As that Marquis Nan Long moved, it again flickered bizarrely beneath old Ancestor Linghu, throwing the exact same punch again. In an instant, old Ancestor Linghu was unable to resist. He was sent flying again and again like a punching bag. The Jade Ruyi was truly a top-tier defensive ancient treasure, although its emerald green light shield flickered incessantly. But under such a concentrated assault, it still had not been shattered. This caused Marquis Nan Long to let out a soft grunt of surprise. But the attacks from his hands did not stop in the slightest. One punch after another. He didn't pause for even a moment. Old Ancestor Linghu was terrified at this moment. He was now just like Lu Weiyan had been back then. With every punch, the spiritual power he had just gathered was mostly shaken and dispersed. He possessed immense divine abilities, but had no power to fight back at all. After a dozen or so more thudding punches landed, the protective shield from the Jade Ruyi finally, under the intense trembling, began to deform and flicker. Old Ancestor Linghu's heart sank into despair. Seeing this, Marquis Nan Long, a sinister sneer flashed across his face. His figure flickered. One hand continued to rain down punches, while the fingers on his other hand came together, forming a hand blade, ready to strike. He was clearly planning to wait until the shield shattered, to immediately deliver a fatal blow to old Ancestor Linghu. Old Ancestor Linghu's face was deathly pale. He watched as cracks appeared on the protective shield. He suddenly gritted his teeth and reached into his robe. He clutched onto something. He was planning to risk it all and fight his opponent to the death. But just then, suddenly, a five-colored beam of light descended from the sky without any warning. In an instant, it enveloped the unprepared Marquis Nan Long within it. At first, Marquis Nan Long paid it no mind, but as soon as the radiant light touched his body, he suddenly felt his body grow heavy, and his movements slowed down considerably. Marquis Nan Long was a little surprised. He immediately glanced sideways in a certain direction through the radiant light. The woman in white was in the distance, holding an ancient mirror high in her hand. A five-colored beam of light was shooting out from the mirror. Seeing this, a green glint flashed in Marquis Nan Long's eyes. With the intervention of the woman in white, Patriarch Linghu immediately seized this life-saving opportunity. Overjoyed, he immediately let go of the object in his robe. Taking advantage of the moment his opponent's attack slowed, he abruptly mustered his spiritual power and transformed into a streak of light to escape. In the blink of an eye, he had flown to the side of the woman in white and landed. Patriarch, who didn't have time to say any words of thanks, he first rubbed his hands together. Then, he raised both hands. Over 10 crimson glowing talismans shot out from his hands. rushing straight towards Marquis Nan Long, who was still trapped in the five-colored pillar of light. They struck out. These captives instantly appeared above Marquis Nan Long's head. Urged on by Ancestor Linghu's incantation, they exploded one after another. A continuous rumbling sound echoed endlessly. A large expanse of crimson thunder fire emerged and came crashing straight down. Marquis Nan Long only had time to release a cloud of black sheh to protect his entire body before he was engulfed by the thunder fire. Of course, Ancestor Linghu did not believe that this would be enough to kill his opponent. As he performed a hand seal for an incantation, he also released a brilliant white, three-pronged flying fork, which attacked while erratically changing size. The woman in white at his side was not idle either. With one hand, she controlled the condensing light treasure mirror to intensify the pillar of light, increasing its restraining power. With her other hand, she flicked her wrist into flying swords. One black and one white shot out from her grasp, transforming into two brilliant streaks of light as they slashed forward. For a moment, beneath the five-colored pillar of light, thunder fire roared, and spiritual light flashed intensely. The possessing entity was hard to find. The creature on the Marquis's body. Is that the Gumo you spoke of? Just as Linghu, Ancestor and the other were desperately fighting Marquis Nan Long in the air. Meanwhile, in a silent corner below, Han Li, however, was frowning deeply, conversing with the great divination monarch. What, besides those ancient demons, what else in this realm could be so formidable? But just by possessing a physical body, it could make to Nascent Soul cultivators flee in utter chaos. It seems this ancient demon is a rather high-ranking one from the ancient demon realm. If you were to face it alone now, even if it's not using its original body, your chances of winning are definitely not high, the great divination monarch said with a bit of schadenfreude. Hey, the fact that you didn't directly tell me to flee for my life already shows you think highly of me. As for facing this thing alone, I don't have such a refined interest. To think that Marquis Nan Long would perish just like that. The ways of the world are truly unpredictable. After Han Li let out a bitter laugh, he muttered, HMPH, speaking of cultivation level alone, even if there were three of you, you would be no match for this possessed ancient demon. But you have quite a lot of miscellaneous tricks up your sleeve. Plus, you have the evil warding divine lightning. Although you're likely no match for this ancient demon, you shouldn't have a problem escaping, right? The great divination monarch snorted coldly. He said in a slightly strange voice. Han Li smiled faintly, just as he was about to say something else. Zilin's voice came from beside him. What on earth should we do now? Are you planning to make a move? Ever since the demonized Nan Long ape had appeared, she had been too shocked to say a word. Now, seeing Han Li's strange expression, she finally couldn't help but ask. The ferocity of this Nan Long ape truly made the woman's heart pound with fear. Hearing Zilin's words, Han Li chuckled. He was just about to reply to her, when his expression suddenly changed and he abruptly raised a hand. A large expanse of azure light shot out, instantly sweeping the woman into it and pulling her back. He forcefully pulled her into his embrace. Then, he transformed into a streak of azure crimson light and shot into the sky. In the blink of an eye, he was in midair. The azure light receded. Han Li reappeared, holding Zilin in his arms, and looked down with a grave expression. Zilin's face flushed slightly. She hurriedly moved out of Han Li's embrace, and also looked down with surprise and suspicion. They saw that in the spot where they had just been standing, a dark, shadowy figure was standing there. It was coldly looking up at them. It was the Nan Long ape. It had appeared there at some unknown time. He was just about to sneak below to launch a surprise attack. Fortunately, Han Li had unintentionally used his bright sight spirit eyes again, and took a sweeping glance. Otherwise, the enemy might have actually succeeded with their sneak attack. Zilin gasped, and she hurriedly looked in another direction. She saw that beneath the five-colored pillar of light over there was still a cloud of black sheh, flickering in and out of existence amidst the lightning and fire. A human figure could also be seen flickering within it. It was clearly another Nan Long Ho. Ancestor Linghu saw Han Li from a distance, with a female cultivator as beautiful as a celestial fairy, suddenly appear in the sky nearby. He was startled at first, then a look of great joy appeared on his face. But, as his gaze swept over the area, and he saw another Nan Long Ho had appeared below, he was instantly terrified. He hurriedly signaled to the woman in white, and slowed the attack in his hands. At this moment, the Nan Long Ho under the five-colored pillar of light glanced at the two of them expressionlessly. It suddenly turned into a wisp of black sheh and dissipated into thin air. It was actually just a temporary incarnation. After Ancestor Linghu and the woman in white glanced at each other, they both saw deep fear in the other's eyes. Creating an incarnation is not difficult, but to be able to fool to Nascent Soul cultivators right under their divine senses. That is truly terrifying. You have to understand, the two of them had been staring at the fierce male monkey inside the black vessel, without even blinking once, yet it still managed to, without anyone noticing, use the golden cicada sheds its shell technique. If its intention wasn't to ambush the secretly hiding Han Li, but to attack them instead, one of them would have likely already been killed. Fellow Taoist Han, I didn't expect you to be here as well. This is wonderful. This demon is incredibly powerful. The three of us can join forces to fight this demon together. It's the only way we can protect ourselves. Old Ancestor Linghu shouted loudly. Upon hearing this, Han Li couldn't help but give a wry smile inwardly. He had thought his concealment technique was profound enough that even Nascent Soul, late-stage cultivators might not be able to discover him. So he had confidently hidden on the side, thinking he could slip away after a while. But he never expected that this ancient demon had not only discovered him, but had also pretended not to know while launching a sneak attack on him. He had almost been killed by it. It seemed this battle was unavoidable. Han Li nodded at old Ancestor Linghu. He suddenly turned his head and said calmly to Xiling, "Your cultivation level is too low. You can't help here. In fact, you might lose your life. You should leave this place first. Don't worry. We'll keep this fiend occupied here. He won't make a move on you. After all, he and Xiling are old acquaintances. I'm telling you to leave now. Otherwise, once the fight starts, we won't be able to look out for you." When Xiling heard this, she was stunned for a moment. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded obediently. Since fellow Taoist Han has said so, then this humble lady will take her leave. Brother Han, you must also take care, Xiling said softly. Then she glanced down below at Marquis Nan Long, and after giving a deep look towards old Ancestor Linghu, she transformed into a streak of light and shot through the sky. As for Marquis Nan Long below, it was unclear if he felt Xiling's cultivation was too weak and not worth his time to attack, or if facing Han Li and the other two was truly a strain for him. He gave the departing Xiling an indifferent glance, then turned his gaze back towards Han Li. Seeing the hostility in his opponent's eyes, Han Li's expression grew grim as he raised a single hand. Several thick arcs of golden lightning appeared on his arm. A series of deafening thunderclaps rumbled continuously. His entire arm was instantly covered in flashing electric light. His eyes widened in shock. Facing such a terrifying ancient demon, Han Li had no intention of testing the waters. The moment he struck, he used the evil-warding divine lightning, which specifically counters demonic arts. Ever since he obtained this divine lightning, it had never let him down when facing demonic arts and evil techniques. Although this ancient demon was incredibly ferocious, Han Li still had a fair amount of confidence in his evil-warding divine lightning. Upon seeing the golden arcs of electricity crackling on Han Li's arm, Marquis Nan Long's red eyelids twitched a few times. His pupils suddenly contracted. "I recognize you. In the residual memories of this guy I'm possessing, the impression of you is very strong. Although I don't remember anything specific, the original owner of this body was extremely wary of you. Now it seems that feeling was not wrong at all. Not only could you see through my sneak attack, but you can also wield the evil warding divine lightning that gave us so much trouble back then. It seems that dealing with you will truly take some effort after all." After staring at Han Li for a moment, Marquis Nan Long finally spoke in an ice-cold voice. Hearing these words, a cold smile touched the corner of his lips. His expression remained completely unchanged, but the golden fire on his arm grew 3 parts stronger. At the same time, he flicked his elegant robes. A small blue shield shot out. After a spin, it transformed into a hazy blue curtain of light, enveloping Han Li within it. At that moment, seeing Han Li take the initiative to stand at the very front, preparing to block Nan Long who head-on, old Ancestor Linghu and the woman in white immediately exchanged an overjoyed glance.